Welcome into this special edition of the OSU Roundup as we honor the legacy of Coach Eddie Sutton, who has passed away. And we wanted to obviously get Coach Boynton's thoughts on Coach Sutton. And first, philosophically, when you think about how you've evolved as a coach, how do you think Eddie Sutton influenced that?
You know, quite honestly, I think a lot of my coaches from when I played probably took a lot of notes from him watching his teams compete. I remember my high school coach being very defensive oriented and then playing for Coach Fogler at South Carolina and Coach Odom. And I think they all at some point coached under someone who was influenced by Coach Sutton or worked with him or saw him at a camp. And so naturally, when I got into coaching, I had the same mindset. And then becoming a head coach at a place where obviously he's legendary, both as a player and a coach, and really a figure in our whole state, obviously. Something I take a great deal of pride in making sure that he's proud of what he looks at.
What do you remember about your first encounters with him?
You know, my first ever encounter with him was when I became the head coach here. And a couple weeks later, I was able to go over to his house. Sean was there, just hanging out. I think it was maybe like a Thursday afternoon. And, you know, he just had this presence. You just felt kind of smaller when you were around him, you know, not in a physical sense, but in the sense of, that's Coach Sutton right there. And obviously I was able to, the year before, be an assistant coach and coach at the place where his name's on the court. And just having an understanding of how much he meant, not only to just our program and university, but to the game of basketball. I mean, his influence stretches wide and far throughout the game. And you'll hear over the next probably coming weeks, several guys express that sentiment.
You know, it's interesting. He was a regular presence at games. He was showing up, obviously, for reunions when he could. What did it mean to you to know that you had his support?
I meant everything. That actually was the moment that I kind of got comfortable doing the job. I felt confident that I could, but when I went to his house that day, and we sat probably for an hour or so, and he didn't say a whole lot because he very rarely did. And you know, when he said, "I believe in you," I left his house feeling like, you know what, I can do this. I mean, like some real validation. Because I knew I would work hard enough, but now knowing that I know he's going to be paying attention, it gave me a whole nother sense of urgency in terms of making sure we did things the right way.
Did the feelings that his former players had for him, and still have for him, obviously, influence you in any way? In terms of how you deal with players?
Yeah. I've always believed in, especially college basketball, where it's different than the pros, right? You get your guys, and for the most part, you stay with them, and you know their families. And the pros, guys come and go every year. Here, you got a chance over some time to really build real relationships. And so after I became the head coach, and even before, because some of them had been around, Big Country and Keontae Roberts, but more of those guys, Randy Rutherford and Brendan Manzer and Vic Williams and Joe Atkins and Desmond Mason, all those guys would be around and just talk about the experience they had playing under him. And not just the game, but being a part of this program meant that that's what I need to do for these guys. I need to make sure that they feel like this program still is theirs, because it still is Coach Sutton's program.
As you think back on learning more about Coach Sutton, getting to know him, what's something that you learned about him that maybe you didn't know, that perhaps influenced you?
I don't know how much of it influenced me, but just his way about people and his influence in the community. I think that's a really, really big deal here. I've tried to make sure that people understand that I'm a part of this community the same way Coach Sutton tried to be a part of the community. And whether that means showing up on campus, in the frat houses, or being at other sporting events and supporting the other teams here, those are things that will continue to be really, really important to me. And then obviously having a chance to have one of his sons on the staff has been a great advantage for me, because I kind of get a peek behind the thought process. Because Scott shares some stories about how he would deal with things in practice. We do something at the end of every year where we have our seniors kind of get a chance to give me a charge. And that thought came from Coach Sutton telling me one day he taught one of his players how to take a charge. And apparently all this stuff falls out of his pocket, keys and change and all that stuff.
Great story.
I'll always think about Coach Sutton when I do that at the end of every season.
Do you ever spend a moment thinking about Mr. Iba, one of the legends in the history of the game. Coach Sutton, one of the legends in the history of the game, right here in Stillwater, Oklahoma. There aren't many schools at all who can offer that type of legacy. Do you think about that? And if so, what thoughts run through your mind?
That I'm at a pretty special place. You know, we've got two of the all-time great coaches in the history of the game at any level. Hall of Famers, rightfully so, both of them now. And the unique part of it for me is that Coach Sutton played for Coach Iba, and obviously took what he learned from him and created his own legacy separate of Coach Iba, although they'll always be connected because of this great university. And obviously Coach Iba's chair still being in the arena. And I always think about that, and I'll always have my mind that Coach Sutton is sitting across from our bench when I coach games moving forward.
Coach Sutton went through probably about the most unimaginable situation that one could go through as a coach with the accident in 2001, and the way he led everyone through that, despite of what obviously he was dealing with on a personal level. When you think back about that, what thoughts run through your mind in terms of maybe perhaps even putting yourself in those shoes? Heaven forbid you would have to go through that, but I guess pondering what that must have been like for a head coach, a position you're in now, having to deal with that and how he led.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. I think ultimately when we look back on his legacy as a coach, that may be the most defining moment for him. The Final Fours were great. All the players graduated from school, all the wins, some of the road trips, but being able to unite a team, a school, a community, a state, and really people around the country, that he was the guy that was going to lead them in a positive way and make them feel like we're going to get through this together, and I'm going to be the one out front. I think ultimately that's what makes him a Hall of Fame coach. And the 806 wins are great and all that stuff, but remember the 10. As much as it's about the 10, it's also about Coach Sutton and the way he made that happen.
Stay with us. A special video tribute to Coach Sutton is coming.
ADM milling is really a part of the fabric of the Enid community. So if we were to have lost them, it would have been more than the 70 jobs that they employ.
OG&E, the City of Enid, and the Enid Regional Development Alliance were all great to work with. Not only does it allow for the growth of the new mill, but also the power is there to make that happen for the future.
Whoa, that's crisp.
Crisp taste, brewed with no corn syrup. Bud Light.
Living with joint pain. Take the first step at mercy.net/cowboysortho.
Welcome back. As we wrap things up, a video tribute to the on-court achievements of our beloved coach, Coach Eddie Sutton.
It's a great day for me and for Oklahoma State, and I'm so happy they're home and back home where they belong.
You know, from the time that I first decided that I wanted to coach, and that was right here at Oklahoma State, I've always had a dream that one day I might come back to my alma mater.
Alexander will lay it up and count. 78-73.
Hatcher with a steal in the bucket. Cowboys win.
Price gets it away, will not go. CT celebration time in Stillwater.
Here comes Sutton with a free lane. Out the basket and he's fouled.
Cowboys with the basketball. Reeves.
Keontae taking it to the rack, baby. Oh, what a night.
now a graduate of Oklahoma State, Eddie Sutton, has brought his team back to the Final Four.
Oh, the shot drops and they count it. Atkins. Cowboys advance to the Elite Eight.
What a way to finish. What a ball game. Left wing Lucas, three-point jumper. Good!
The fans in Gallagher-Iba Arena were outstanding. If there was ever a group of people that played the part of the sixth man, they were it.
God bless all of you. Thank you for being my good friend.